From President Trump on down, everyone seems to agree that America needs to become a renovation nation. But as Kris Van Cleave tells us, politically, the road to repairing our infrastructure may be as bumpy and potholed as the actual roads themselves.
The time has come for a new program of national rebuilding.
In his speech to a joint session of Congress this past week, President Donald Trump made clear he intends to make good on one of his signature campaign promises.
Our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our highways, our airports, schools, hospitals, we'll rebuild everything.
Rebuilding the nation's infrastructure was a key element of Mr. Trump's plan to make America great again. And anxious experts who have been watching it crumble for years are hopeful this time the issue might finally get the attention it deserves.
I think we've just been in a mass collective state of denial about how important these systems are, what it takes to keep them, up to snuff.
Casey Dinges is with the American Society of Civil Engineers. Later this week, they will release their highly anticipated infrastructure report card. Last time, they gave the nation a D+.
Road conditions cause the average American to spend another $500 a year on car repairs. By the year 2020, if we don't start making proper investments, personal family income will fall by $3,000.
And so Boulder Dam stands today, a modern colossus.
The United States used to have the best infrastructure in the world. But those days are long gone.
If these investments aren't made, doesn't the risk of failure of these types of aging infrastructure go up?
It'll be a more dangerous infrastructure that we're relying on. So we're certainly putting ourselves at greater risk from a safety perspective, absolutely.
Virtually everyone agrees we need to fix the nation's aging infrastructure. But there's a fierce debate underway about how we should pay for it. By raising taxes, turning to private investment, or simply borrowing more money.
I think there's no danger that we're going to spend too much.
Larry Summers served as Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton and was an economic advisor to President Obama. He is one of a growing number of economists who say the money to pay for an increase in infrastructure spending should be borrowed.
A moment of unprecedentedly low interest rates should be a moment of unprecedentedly high investment. And it's a tragic irony that it's a moment of unprecedentedly low investment.
Why is that? Why aren't cities, states, and the federal government going, we should act now?
Some of it is general distrust of government. Some of it is frustration with the difficulties in getting infrastructure projects done quickly. Some of it is just a generalized gridlock that seems to infect our politics.
Help us rebuild America. Help us put construction workers back to work.
Republicans in Congress consistently opposed increasing infrastructure spending under President Obama. After years of Tea Party protests, few seem eager to take on more debt in order to do so now. Tuesday night, the president hinted his plan will not ask taxpayers to foot the entire bill.
I will be asking Congress to approve legislation that produces a $1 trillion investment in infrastructure of the United States, financed through both public and private capital, creating millions of new jobs.
The White House is yet to release an infrastructure plan. But last fall, Mr. Trump's campaign suggested offering billions in tax credits to private investors willing to finance public infrastructure projects. Known as public-private partnerships, they are essentially business deals. The project has to generate revenue for the private investors.
There are literally trillions of dollars available around the globe for infrastructure projects.
Doug Peterson co-chairs the Infrastructure Task Force for the Bipartisan Policy Center.
Are there projects that lend themselves to this kind of arrangement?
Toll roads would be one example, that a company might completely purchase and run a transportation system of roads getting paid through the tolls.
Like the tolls collected on these express lanes outside Washington, D.C. When Virginia wanted to build them, it was private investors who helped pick up the tab.
This project wouldn't have gotten done without a public-private partnership. There wasn't money.
There was no money for this project.
But for-profit infrastructure can mean more than just toll roads.
If I took you in blindfold and you took to the LaGuardia Airport in New York, you must think I must be in some third world country.
The long-awaited $4 billion makeover at New York's much reviled LaGuardia Airport is a public-private partnership. But privatizing infrastructure can be expensive, sometimes very expensive. In Southern Virginia, the tolls to cross this privately financed tunnel started small, but have risen to as much as $11, forcing Virginia taxpayers to subsidize some low-income drivers. This toll road in Denver didn't cost taxpayers a dime, but cost drivers as much as $18 one way. In Chicago, the cost of parking has more than doubled since the city leased its meters to private investors in 2008. Before the 75-year lease is up, the deal will cost the city's furious residents millions. And how do we attract investors to infrastructure projects unlikely to make a profit? We probably won't.
Every day I say a little prayer before I come in this building, actually.
Jim Bogenreef runs the 79-year-old water treatment plant in Breckenridge, Minnesota. The city of 3,300 is proud of its safe, clean water, but the plant is long past its prime.
This one is the one that worries me the most. See what I'm talking about, the rust? Ooh.
Some pipes still in use date back to the 1930s. A public works package that included money to replace the plant was defeated in the state legislature last year.
If this were to fail, blow a hole, we would not have any water at all. It literally scares me. Oh, I think I'm going to church right now, I think.
Here's the irony. Even though politicians can't agree, infrastructure spending is popular. A recent poll found 89% favored increasing federal infrastructure spending. Many experts believe the best way to fund transportation infrastructure would be to boost the federal gasoline tax. It hasn't been raised since 1993.
We did not have enough funding to maintain the roads and the bridges that we currently had.
Georgia Governor Nathan Deal couldn't do anything about gridlock in Washington, but he was determined to do something about gridlock in Atlanta. In 2015, in a move that angered anti-tax conservatives, Deal and his fellow Republicans in the state legislature agreed on a 10-year, $10 billion transportation bill, raising the gas tax by 6 cents a gallon for the average driver. 19 states and the District of Columbia have increased their gas tax since 2013.
I mean, is it a situation where people are willing to pay for things like roads, and it's the politics that sometimes gets in the way of that?
I think that's always a factor. I think we sometimes underestimate the enthusiasm that our public has for making sure that they don't have to sit in traffic. I think that's the frustration that many taxpayers and many drivers have all across the country is they don't see anybody doing anything except talking about something. I thought it was time we did something about it.
No matter how it's paid for, raising taxes, private investment, or borrowing, most agree the time to act is now. If not, the nation's crumbling infrastructure is likely something we all will be dealing with for a very, very long time.